The first day of the offseason is officially underway as the San Francisco 49ers move out of 49ers headquarters. You had the media speak to the players as they pack up their stuff to be able to exit for the offseason. We had a lot of stuff come out today. We had Brock Purdy talk about his contract situation. We had Deommodore Lenoir give a bold prediction of what he expects to happen in the future. I think we have our answer on what the future looks like for Charvarius Ward. And also he revealed some more things about some of the stuff he's going through off the field, which is just heartbreaking to hear. Ricky Pearsall talks about kind of looking at the year in its totality with how it started to where we're at now. So we got a lot of stuff. We got the 49ers making roster moves. As we know, they have now they got to fill that thing up to a 90-man roster. So there's tons of stuff to talk about. We're going to get into it all right now, but you guys already know what to do. Drop an SDS in the chat. Congratulations. You survived the 2024 49ers season. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. Shout out to the Bread Gang. We made it, ladies and gentlemen. We have officially moved into the offseason. Oh my goodness. We survived, but barely. Just by the skin of our chinny chin did we survive. It was getting close. We were going right up against it. It was like, oh my gosh, we might not actually make it out of this year. We had Isaac Arendo go down super early, get carted off. I was like, oh my gosh, like, how do we super sim this game against the Arizona Cardinals? How do we get it done? Thankfully, like the 49ers got their butts beat, but I didn't even care. I could care less. All I wanted to see was the the double zeros on the clock, and that was it. I've never been so disinterested in a game in my entire life, because all I wanted for it was to be over. Win or lose, I didn't care all that much. I think if we're going to put a bow on the Arizona Cardinals game, really what I just wanted to see was these guys get out of there healthy. And also, I don't think I've ever rooted for the quote unquote tank, but heading into that game, I was like, man, sign me up for the respectful tank. I want to see them play hard. I want to see them go out there and make plays and do what they got to do. But I don't mind if they lose, because we had some positive things come out. And shout out to all the SDS. We see you guys checking in. Shout out the gang. Shout out the Brad gang in the building. Smash that like button. But there's some positives to take away. And again, the biggest positive was that the season was over. Thank goodness we can move beyond the 2024 season. I mean, you talk about disastrous seasons. Disaster. Absolute disaster. However, the 49ers were able to obtain a last place schedule, which means they now face off against the fourth place team in the NFC South and the AFC South. And that has actually netted them the easiest schedule out of any NFL team as it's being projected as of today. Now, let's also keep in mind that with that being said, a lot of these teams are going to change. They are going to look a lot different. There are going to be many changes. We already have seen all the coaching changes that have occurred. There's going to be a lot of different looking teams out there. So what we call, the worst team right now, yeah, okay, it might look a little different coming up. But as you can see right there at the bottom, number 32 with in this strength of schedule based on last year's 2024's record, the 49ers are at the very bottom. So that doesn't guarantee anything. It doesn't guarantee that the 49ers are just going to come out and go, undefeated, be favored in every single game, no matter what. But it does help. And when you look at the NFC and the AFC South, a lot of beatable teams in those divisions. So optimism, keyword optimism, an opportunity to look at the upcoming year and be like, all right, we have something to build towards. I'm going to say it. I say it at the beginning of every year, and it will still be the same heading into this year. I can already sense it. The two biggest things in the 49ers' way of getting to the Super Bowl will be injuries and themselves. I have said this every year, and it somehow proves to be true every single year. So it's going to be, can they stay healthy, and can they stop the self-inflicted wound, the critical error at the critical time, the missed kick when you need it, the turnover when you don't want to have a turnover. Those are the things that they really need to get a grasp of and just get back to playing 49er football, being aggressive, being able to just fire on all cylinders and get out your own way. That's the way that I look at it, because if this 49ers team, you can almost plug in a bunch of different people, but if they just execute and they are in rhythm and they avoid the mental errors, the weird mistakes, the momentum swinging plays, if they just execute and go do their job, they're damn near winning every game. And it's crazy to think, because there are a lot of teams in the NFL, if they did that, they're not winning every game. They're not in a position to be good enough to be able to do that. But the 49ers are, and if they can get out of their own way and they can just build momentum and reduce the mistakes, they're winning. They're a winning team. Look at this season for how terrible the season was. If they just get out of their own way, the 49ers are in the playoffs right now. Even amidst all of it, if they just get out their own way, they are in the playoffs. You could probably keep all the injuries, but if you just remove the missed kicks, the ridiculous penalties, the ridiculous flops of opportunities, they're in the playoffs. So, and that's with everything else staying the same this season, if we want to play the hypothetical game. So I think that there's a lot of optimism heading into this next season. I think there are tons of opportunities for the 49ers to rebuild this roster, get back on track, and return to the Super Bowl. I mean, Deommodore Lenoir is feeling the Super Bowl. He was asked today about missing the Pro Bowl this year. Clearly, he was snubbed. Considering when you look at his statistics and you see how he's played, he's definitely played at a very high level and should have been voted as a Pro Bowl starter. He wasn't, but when he was asked about it, he said, I missed the Pro Bowl this year. I think I'm going to miss it next year because we're going to be in the Super Bowl. Hey, I'll take it, man. I think that no one is shocked by this. We have heard DMO speak his mind and say what's on his chest his whole career. So no one even bats an eye at this. I think, when certain players come off and they say something like this, it's like, oh my goodness, like, did he really just call that the 49ers are going to be in the Super Bowl a day after they just got, knocked out of the playoffs, eviscerated by the Cardinal? Like, no, I believe Deommodore Lenoir. I believe that Deommodore Lenoir believes what he's saying. Because anytime Deommodore Lenoir has said something, he's typically backed it up. So when he's saying we're going to the Super Bowl, I think he really truthfully believes that they're going to get this thing together and they're going to figure it out and they're going to move forward and be competitive again, which I believe as well. So that was one of the things that came out today. Again, I wasn't even shocked by it. I was like, yeah, it seems about right. And, is he wrong? No, I don't think so. I don't got a problem with it. I'm so used to it at this point. Another thing that was discussed today was we heard from Brock Purdy. So we already know that this is one of the hottest talking points right now amidst everything that's going on. And there's a lot of things going on. But with Brock, he was asked about his contract situation, and I appreciated what he had to say. And I'm going to let you listen to what he had to say, and if you can't hear it, let me know in the chat for my YouTube producers.
Just with the timing of getting something done and whatnot. For me, I want to obviously get it done. If that's an opportunity to be able to get that done quick, that'd be great. Just so we can get back for phase one, get after it with the receivers and our team, and just continue to grow. Because man, we all got to grow together. We got to come close and learn and just be the best versions of ourselves as fast as we can. And phase one is my mind of OTAs coming back, getting all the guys back, and let's roll. Let's get after this offseason together. And but with that being said, everybody's timing is a little different and stuff. But for me, at the end of the day, I want to win. I want to win for this organization and everybody here. I'm not the kind of guy that wants to have any kind of drama associated with anything. I'm here for this organization, for my teammates in the locker room, and I want to be very professional about it. We play professional football for our living, and everybody's and I want to keep the main thing, and not get distracted by all the chaos that can go on within it. But I want to just be clean about it and respectable, and get something done and get back to work.
All right. So let's talk about what Brock just said, and I think there's two ways to interpret what he said. I do appreciate what he said about the contract because I think it aligns with how everyone within the fan base would also like the situation to play out in terms of speed and getting the deal done. I do believe that is kind of a message to the 49ers. Indirectly, directly, you can make up your mind. What I hear Brock saying about, man, we got to get this done before OTAs because that's when it starts. That's when the road to the Super Bowl and the preparations begin. They're in OTAs, they're in minicamp. So he is putting an emphasis on the importance of what that looks like. And he's putting an emphasis on, man, don't want any issues around that time because that's when we start. That's when we start this journey. And as we know, the 49ers, their tendency is to push these contract negotiations all the way through the spring, into the summer, and into training camp. That's just the way they do it. I don't have any inside information to tell you to why. Now we've seen instances where like Jawan Jennings and Christian McCaffrey heading into mandatory minicamp, they were able to get their contracts reworked and figured out. Two guys had their contracts figured out before mandatory minicamp because both CMC and Jawan Jennings were heading towards kind of a holdout. So the 49ers got it done. They needed to put more guaranteed money on CMC's contract. They did that. And with Jawan Jennings, if I'm not mistaken, he was a restricted free agent. So they kind of ripped up that kind of restricted free agent tender and they just gave him a new contract. With Brock, obviously, we're talking about a substantial amount of money. So will that get done by mandatory minicamp? Sheesh, I don't know. And what's going to be very fascinating to see is if we're going to get a hold out or a hold in. To me, the way Brock kind of talks about it and kind of what Throwback is talking about right here, he says Brock Purdy saw what happened with BA and how much of a headache it was. I don't blame him wanting to go through that drama. No time for that. Right. Absolutely. Because when it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what you've done. I think every fan base is the same. As soon as fans start perceiving a player to be kind of upset about money or certain, like they just don't, there's not the same level of rationale or like, I guess, understanding, because I think majority of fans will rationalize it through their own perspective, which is understandable. It's your own perspective, but it's not the perspective of an NFL athlete. They're not equal. The NFL athletes, they operate off completely different set of circumstances and completely different set of rules. And you can even hear how it's being discussed with Brock Purdy's contract. Even in the mainstream media, you have guys like Colin Cowherd getting onto his platform, which is at the peak of reach and ability to access, I guess, whatever. He isn't even talking about the contract the way it needs to be discussed. And so it's like you can't even expect people who have jobs in the media at the highest level to focus on how to talk about the contract. So it makes the conversation challenging because you're going to have people saying, well, he's not worth this. He's not worth that. And at the end of the day, it's not you or I who determines what he is worth. The market determines what he is worth. Whether you or I like that. And unfortunately, due to the Trent Baalkes of the world, guys who overextend and pay their quarterbacks like Trevor Lawrence and Tua and Daniel Jones and, all of those guys, they get paid that amount. Well, guess what? Every quarterback who is in line to get paid now gets bumped up to that level. The same thing applies just like Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk was a $26 million wide receiver until the market exploded. And then he went from the $26 million level to the $30 million level. That was nothing changed. No games were played. No additional stats occurred. Nothing happened. What happened is the market exploded. So as a result of that, so that the asking price that was once around 26 is now 30 because of the market. So that's the first thing. is the market. And then on top of that, I think we have to have more specific conversations about the dollar amount. We keep referencing $60 million per year, just like it's mentioned right here by HSC says, I don't think BP worth 60 mil, but that's the market. You know, I had a hard time digesting the fact that the 49ers at one point paid Jimmy Garoppolo 27.5 after 5 games. Could you imagine paying a starting quarterback 27 million right now? That would be phenomenal. That would be great. But that's not the reality. And at that time, that 27 and a half was, I believe, the highest paid player of all time. So it's like, just since 2018, it's now 2025. Since 2018, 27 and a half was the highest paid player ever. And it was Jimmy Garoppolo after 5 games. Fast forward to now, dude, when Josh Allen gets paid, we're going to be talking about 75 M's per year. Unless they spread it out over like a 10-year deal like they did with Patrick Mahomes. The reason why Patrick Mahomes' APY looks so low is because they spread it out over so many years. So I think the important conversation is, this is how I try to talk about this, the contract. I really don't care where Brock Purdy lands at APY. If he lands at 61 million per year on average, that's a lot. That is a lot, right? But what I am more concerned about is, I am more concerned about the structure, the guarantees, how it's spread out over the course of the deal. Because if we can see that Brock Purdy, when you string everything together, it comes out to, let's just say, anywhere between 50 to 60. I don't even know if he'll get 60. I don't know. To me, it seems kind of like it as my thoughts just spin around. It just kind of seems like, oh, we got an update on Garendo. It just kind of seems like, for me, as long as the San Francisco 49ers can build out the contract and they can continue to build the way they need to build, I don't really care about the APY. The APY to me is more so window dressing. It's more so for us. It's like, what looks good in print. What looks good for us to talk about. The thing that really matters to me is, can we still build? Can we remain competitive? Can we still add pieces? And if the answer is yes, then I'm fine. I'm fine with retaining Brock at a number that allows the San Francisco 49ers to continue to build a roster around him. We understand that the cap will continue to rise. We understand that it's just the nature of the business, right? I understand people not liking the idea of paying a certain amount for a player. But when it comes to the quarterback position, as long as the 49ers can still go out, add players in free agency, continue to build for the long term, I don't care what that APY says. So that's kind of my thought on it. I think we're going to just argue about it till we're blue in the face about what it should be. But I think what it should be is, as long as the 49ers can continue to build and not be put into a hole where they can't do a bunch of things, I think that changes the conversation. So that's it. Bozzy says, yes, we can build and remain competitive while paying Brock top-rate money. Both the Eagles and Lions paid their quarterbacks top-rate money, and neither Hurts nor Goff are better than Brock. Well, if you remember, they paid Hurts 50, I think it was 51 or 52, and then they immediately turned around and paid both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. So, and they paid, I think, Dickerson and Mailata, and like they paid guys. So there's a way. And so I think what it comes down to, it's a combination of things. Don't let this drag on like you do every single time. I'm not assuming the 49ers are going to get this done in an expedited fashion. I'm fully prepared for them to drag this out and make it more complicated than it needs to be, and subsequently hurting them in the long run, which is what I think Brock Purdy was speaking to. It was like, don't let this hurt us. Like, let's get this figured out. Let's not let this drag on beyond OTAs and minicamp, because if it does, it will hurt our team and it will hurt our chances. Let's not do that. So we'll see what comes of it. But I do appreciate what Brock had to say about it. And I think I agree. If you're just joining, we got a bit of an update on Guarendo's injury. We have Isaac Guarendo has a MCL and ankle sprain. So that is good news. No ACL. He tweeted that earlier today, that there was no ACL injury. So that's great news. So Isaac Guarendo should be good to go. Expect Isaac Guarendo ready to rock OTAs, mandatory minicamp. So good news there. Good news there. So we're gonna talk about the Brock Purdy thing. That thing's gonna keep swinging back around. So don't you worry. We'll have plenty of time to say the same thing over and over again, but it will happen. So be prepared. And the 49ers have already been linked to 2 former quarterbacks. They're already being linked to Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins. So just be prepared for anything. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That's where I'm at right now. So we have Bozzy, appreciate the super chat, says, who are your top prospective DC hires if we hopefully fire or demote Sorensen? The demotion idea is interesting because Matt Barrows actually was the first to float this out, and I don't know if it would actually happen. I don't think it would, but he was like, Nick Sorensen was a special teams coordinator at one point. Could you just send him back down to be the special teams coordinator? I was like, no, it's not an interesting idea. I don't think it would happen. But maybe. I don't think it would happen. I think the interesting one was the guy that just got let go. Gus Bradley of the Colts. We know that he spent some time up in Seattle. We know that the 49ers defense that they run is an offshoot of Seattle's defense. The one that Gus Bradley was there with, what's his name? Pistol Pete Carroll. So that is an option. In regards to other coaching options, I think Ulbrich makes sense. Um, I'm not sure Saleh would be interested in the job. Um, I think most fans would prefer Saleh to be that guy. Saleh might be able to uh I think I don't know. He might be able to get a head coaching job somewhere. I don't know. So I don't know if Saleh is going to be an option. Um, I like the idea of Jim Schwartz. I don't know much about Lou. I know I've seen a lot of talk about Lou today, the Bengals defensive coordinator. I personally don't know a whole lot about him, so I can't sit here and pound the table for a guy that I first time I've heard his name was today. So I see a lot of people were like, "Ooh, that this guy's good." Take your word for it. Um, if Jim Schwartz is available, come down because maybe Kyle could learn a thing or two from Schwartz because Schwartz has had Kyle's number, and it would be great for Kyle to have an actual like defensive mind that I think can balance Kyle. I think I think with what we have is with the league so used to Kyle's offense that no one's surprised by anything Kyle does anymore. And I think that's part of the issue of last year from an offensive standpoint, from a play calling standpoint. I don't think anyone's surprised by anything anymore because they're practicing against an offshoot of Kyle's defense offense damn near every day in practice. So I don't think I don't think that Kyle's, at least the way it's currently constructed, confuses anyone anymore. And that might be super generalized statement that I just made, but it's just how it feels. Just how it feels at the moment. So maybe if Kyle were to bring in a DC that has played very well against his offense historically, then you have the meeting of the minds, like being all right, I see how you're trying to stop me. Now let me counter that. Let me now that I have like real inner knowledge of how you key and how you stop me, now let me use those rules against you because what it feels like right now is these defensive coordinators know the 49ers rules and they're using them against the 49ers. It's been the other way around typically. We normally see that it's Kyle using the defense's rules against them. So they figured out how to counteract that. So I would like to see if you could bring in Schwartz. I don't know if that's going to happen. I didn't see anything about Schwartz being fired, but I don't know if I don't think Stefanski got fired, but I would definitely be down for Schwartz. Schwartz kind of an old school coach too, kind of a throwback, kind of a guy that you don't need to worry about, you know. I don't know how that benefits and how Schwartz would necessarily fit into what the 49ers have because I think one of the issues that the 49ers have is whatever DC that they bring in, that DC has to fit what the 49ers do, opposed to the DC bringing his staff, his scheme, his players. It feels a little different. So that's another thing. It's like you kind of got to get someone who has a very similar thought process as what the 49ers currently do, that's why I feel Ulbrich might be the best candidate. The 49ers already showed interest in him last year by requesting to interview him. Saleh said no. And I think the reason why they wanted him is because his defense will run off the same bones that the 49ers currently have. So I do think Ulbrich might be an option. Maybe Cal needs to let the DC do what they want. We could have Vic Fangio. I think that's the hard part because a DC that gets to do what they want, they might bring in a different defensive line coach. They might move away from the wide nine. They might, that's the hard part. They might get away, like they love Chris Kosurik's wide nine, but I mean, so many players have talked about how actually difficult it is to play in the wide nine and how hard it is to learn. I didn't play defensive line, so I feel like I understand what the wide nine is. I don't understand like what's the difficult elements of playing within the wide nine. It sounds very, very minor details of being gap sound and playing to your responsibilities and keying on certain things in certain situations. Like that would be great if I had ever played in a wide nine defensive line front. I never did. I was offensive lineman. So I don't have that kind of knowledge of what that means. I just know we run the wide nine and I know what that looks like. I know what our alignments look like. But they talk about it. Like when I asked Nick Bosa, I was like, tell me about how Yetur Gross-Matos is fitting in to the rotation. Well, he's learning the scheme. It's taking some time. He's got to learn the wide nine. He's got to fit in. We heard Hargrave talk about, it was really hard for him to learn the wide nine in his first year. So that's been the interesting element about the wide nine is most players talk about how difficult it is to learn. So I don't know. I don't know enough. I've seen the wide nine be successful. So when it's executed properly, so I don't have like a really good, strong football take on why or why not. But it is an interesting thing that I picked up on when kind of listening to these guys talk about it. So that'll be interesting. But also too, in line with Isaac Guerendo's injury, we also heard today that Christian McCaffrey is pretty much healed from the knee injury that he suffered against the Buffalo Bills. He said that if the 49ers were in the playoffs, that he'd probably be able to play. So I would say that's a good sign for CMC heading into the offseason. That to me doesn't sound like he'll miss OTAs or mandatory minicamp. Hopefully the bilateral tendonitis, Achilles tendonitis has been taken care of and they can move freely into this offseason with CMC and Isaac Guerendo knowing that they are not going to be seriously hurt. I haven't heard anything from Jordan Mason today. I was actually hoping to hear something from him about just kind of his status. I know he's a restricted free agent and he went on IR along with CMC. The 49ers have the opportunity to have a really strong running back room if healthy. CMC, JP, and IG. Man, you get those three, the alphabet gang. That could be a really, really solid running back room for sure. And even if you, let's say with Elijah Mitchell, who's a unrestricted free agent, he could theoretically re-sign for super cheap because of the injury history that he has. But they like him. They like Elijah. He's just often injured. So you could see a world that exists where he signs a 1-year prove-it deal, returns, and you potentially have a running back room of CMC, IG, JP, and EM. So we'll see. Or you can just go get Cam Scattaboo in the second or third round. See how that fares. But there are options for the 49ers. But I do think that with what we saw from last year, you want to insulate that running back room. Eric even says how much tread is left on CMC's tires. Honestly, I think him not playing this year actually preserves some of that tread. I know the injury was the reason. It was a part of that, but I think that CMC, all things considered, he remains healthy through the offseason. He might come out on a different level. So CMC is too much of a freak athlete for me to count out. I don't think CMC is a normal human. I don't think he's a normal specimen. So although he was kind of hit with some stuff, this year that made him seem real human, I think that if he's able to maintain his health, he will go crazy next year. So I'm not counting that dude out at all. I'm not counting CMC out. So I'm not concerned. With me, it's just health. Just got to stay healthy. And if he can stay healthy, I think the 49ers will be fine. We heard from Mooney Ward today, and man, that was a brutal listen, because in all of what he said, I believe he's saying that I'm not returning. The 49ers thought I was going to be too expensive after this year. That's why they drafted Renato Green in the second. Basically insinuating that this was his final season here. And they knew that heading in, which I think we all kind of saw, especially when Deommodore Lenoir got paid. But man, when he talked about what California means to him and how it represents trauma, that was brutal. Because obviously he's gone through an imaginable tragedy, and he kind of shared a little bit more to like how that's been. And that was a brutal listen. It was a brutal listen because, I've never personally dealt with child loss like he has. I have dealt with child loss in the birthing process. So it's not apples to apples or anything like that. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I know what he's going through. But I've experienced something similar in that sense, where that feeling, that feeling of loss of a child, I imagine is somewhat similar. But the way he explained it, and I don't want to repeat the details of the situation, but essentially what he was saying is California, his current home, it reminds him of that. It reminds him of that loss. And it reminds his wife or his partner to the point where she didn't come back. They went to their hometown. She stayed, and Charvarius is alone. Went from having, and he just had a newborn son, so he went from having his whole family here to now the unimaginable loss to now his wife is away, and sounds like he's still at his same house where that happened. Oh my God, dude. Like, and he was talking about having to go home every night and being alone. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like, I'm almost like, Charvarius, like, can I help you move? Like, not because I don't want you a part of the team. I would love for Charvarius to be a 49er. I love Charvarius. I've had multiple conversations with him. He's super chill, super cool. He's always been awesome to me, and he's been awesome to everyone. He's never been a bad guy. And I'm almost like, bro, how do I help you move? Like, I don't want you to be here for you. I don't want you to be here for your own mental health. The fact that you returned to work and you came back amidst all that stuff, and you're like, your wife and your partner can't even return to California. Like, dude, how do I help you just go be with your family? Like, and the fact that he came back, and again, he struggled when he came back. Who wouldn't? Literally, who wouldn't? And he plays one of the hardest positions in football. So, like, I feel so bad for him, dude. I feel, I can't even imagine. So, like, that situation that he has to live through, like, I bet he's hyped to get out of here. And again, that's not a disrespect to the organization. That's not a disrespect to the 49ers. It's not a disrespect to California. It's not a disrespect to 49er fans, which I'm sure some way, somehow, some 49er fan will take it that way. It's for him, man. This is a human being. Let him go. Like, let him go and be free of the traumatic experiences that he's had to go through. There's no shame at all in kind of wanting to remove yourself out of that place. So to me, that's what he said. To me, he said, I'm going. He didn't say that, but my interpretation is I'm leaving California. There's too many bad memories here, and I need to go be with my family. I need to go be with my wife, my partner, my kids. I need to get out of here. And I'm like, bro, can I help you? And again, not because I want him out of here, but because I want him to be good. Like, on some real. Like, I just want him to be good, dude. That's a lot of pain to have to go through. And there's no need to relive it every day for a job. I get he is a responsibility to his teammates. That's what we're all taught when we sign up to be football players. But yeah, man, I feel bad for him. I really do. So if that was it for Charvarius, dude, I appreciate him. I appreciate what he brought to this team. He was absolutely right. If he was a free agent after last season, he would have been one of the highest paid cornerbacks in the NFL. Just unfortunate timing with everything. And, I wish him the best. Wherever that is, I don't know where his hometown is. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know where that is. I just hope he gets out of it. I hope he gets out of here, and I hope he goes back to a place that is uplifting for him. But the 49ers, let's kind of shift gears into a little bit more lighter subject. The 49ers also made some roster moves. They brought back Jonathan Garvin, Sebastian Gutierrez, Teron Jackson, Zach Johnson, Chase Lucas, Jalen Mahoney, Tanner Mordecai, Drake Nugent, Tariq Owens, Mason Pline, Trent Taylor. They got 90 man roster to fill. I don't mind having any of those guys on the 90. I think the names that intrigue me the most are Mason Pline, Drake Nugent, Tanner Mordecai, Tariq Owens, Jalen Mahoney, and Teron Jackson. I'm really curious to see how Teron Jackson works out. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's going on there. So with it kind of being the final day for the 49ers players at the facility, we're going to see a completely different team next year. Like, really, like, it sounds like Kyle Shanahan is going to be letting some coaches go. I'm not sure the weight. Maybe there's still a couple things to evaluate for that, but it does sound like the 49ers, I would have to imagine they're going to have to move on from Schneider. And Schneider was a big Jake Moody guy. So that's another interesting element to that, is that if they do fire Schneider, who's the current special teams coach, which I think you have to. I mean, special teams has never been good under Kyle Shanahan, but it's not worth just running it back. Got to find something new. And it's just not working. So if Schneider's gone, I wouldn't be surprised if Moody is gone. I'm really trying to put myself in the 49ers shoes and try to think, how would they handle Jake Moody? Because if they let him go, it looks bad for them because he was a 3rd round pick. But if they keep him, they also look bad because Jake Moody hasn't panned out up until now. So what do? It's kind of a lose-lose. That they really, the only way that they could salvage a W, which, and I think that, again, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes to try to put myself into their mindset of decision making. If we spend a 3rd round draft pick on this guy, if we cut him, we're going to look like idiots. And then Kyle's probably sitting over here. Well, John, we already look like idiots because we took a kicker in the 3rd round to begin with. And so they have that discussion like, well, we know he can kick. He just has the yips. Like, it's just he's just not confident in his ability. And just like Jake Moody said himself, if you don't have confidence as a kicker, you have nothing. So he's just dealing with lack of confidence. All right, well, how do we build up his confidence? Is Kyle the type of coach to build up someone's confidence? I would say no. So how do we build his confidence? Do we build it through competition? Do we bring another kicker in and say, Jake, we're having a competition, and may the best man win? That allows you to save a little bit of face with the fact you drafted him in the 3rd round. Except you have to give a roster spot to another kicker. And hey, we've had a kicking competition before. Jake Moody's rookie year. Remember, we had Zane Gonzalez in the building. So that's how he got his start. So do you bring in another kicker and have him go at it? I feel like that might be what they do. But that means that just could potentially drag out the inevitable. it might, the 49ers have a tendency of hedging. They really like to hedge. They are not big on going all in. They're very big on having backup plans, but sometimes it feels like the backup plan derails the main plan. I think of when they traded all those draft picks to go up and get Trey Lance, and what I believe is one of the biggest miscalculations outside of drafting Trey Lance was keeping Jimmy. That to me was a just ridiculous thought process to have a 21-year-old who needed all the reps in the world, needed all the confidence and all of that, and you plop him into a locker room that has been going to war for Jimmy Garoppolo for years, and we just expect it to be kumbaya. Nah, I think that was a huge mistake. I think it was a huge mistake drafting Trey Lance and believing that Jimmy Garoppolo could be your bridge. The bridge needed to be an outside source. The bridge needed to be someone who knew it wasn't his job. It was only his job right now. And even if Jimmy knew that, Jimmy already owned the locker room. Those were all his guys in that locker room. And you expect a kid like Trey Lance, a good kid. I mean, man, the 49ers players love Trey Lance. I don't think that's the problem. I think Trey Lance is a great kid. We saw it when the 49ers played Dallas this year. The entire 49ers roster and staff went up and said what's up to Trey Lance after the game. They love Trey. Trey is a great human. But I think the problem was he was just such a young player, and not all young players handle situations like Brock. Brock is a young player, but he had a lot of experience. So there's a lot of confidence baked into his experience. When you go back and you watch Trey Lance's kind of Sports Center, my first draft thing, it was right there for you to see. When they talk about his parents, when they talk about Trey Lance's magical season at NDSU, they all talk about it like this came out of nowhere. We had no idea. Like, his dad was like, I was looking at my wife, and I was like, what is happening? Like, even Trey's parents were surprised with how well Trey was playing. Trey was surprised with how well he was playing because it had never happened before like that. So I think when something like that happens and you have this one-off great season, there isn't this backbone of just like, I've been a great quarterback my whole life and it's just continued. He had no offers to be quarterback. They wanted him to be a safety. He got an offer from NDSU. He has one season and then boom, he's in the NFL. So when you take that guy and you plop him into a situation that already has a solidified culture that backs up Jimmy Garoppolo, I think that can really damage a young quarterback's mentality. And that was why back then I was like, it is a mistake to have Jimmy here. It is a mistake. Not that I wanted Jimmy out of here, but I think it was a giant miscalculation of the locker room dynamic, and that created a huge rift in the fan base. Like, it was just, to me, it was a big miscalculation. All of it was a miscalculation. And then when they were done with Jimmy, but they got Trey, but I don't think they truthfully believed in Trey. to be the quarterback right away. So, dude, disaster. Really, really, I think just that whole situation, the whole process, just in real time, it didn't feel good. Um, we were excited because we knew that they were getting a quarterback. There was no question about it. But it felt like they were hedging, and the hedge actually hurt them more than it helped them. And as a result of it, not only did they hedge, but like Jay Tan says, it was a knee-jerk reaction. They burned picks. They burned picks just to ultimately keep Jimmy for 2 years as your starter. Like, oh, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Like, looking back in the Wayback Machine, just like you think about it, it makes you sick. It just makes you sick. We spent 3 first-round draft picks just to have Jimmy Garoppolo for 2 more years. Make it make sense. And that sucks. Because, boy, Micah Parsons probably would have looked pretty good lining up across from Nick Bosa if the 49ers just stayed at 12 and just ran it back with Jimmy. It just felt off. Felt off. Just the whole thing. The whole thing was just Jimmy working on the side yard, at training camp. Oh, it's just so weird. It's just so weird. Hey, I could have dealt with Micah Parsons' podcast if he was producing 15 plus sacks a year. I'd have been fine with that. And our locker room would have made sure he didn't do anything too crazy. But anyways, we can hop in the Wayback Machine all we want. But again, it also kind of like rolls into this whole conversation about Brock Purdy, where I just don't understand why a portion of this fan base has this belief that the 49ers have any other option but to pay Brock. Like, all right, do we move off of Brock in favor of a veteran retread that's on his last leg? Or do we invest into a 25-year-old quarterback who's proven to be a winner, although he might not be the most physically gifted quarterback in the world? But like, what are we doing? Stovey says, don't pay Brock, bring in Rodgers. Why? For what? Dude's going to be 42 years old. The drama. Well, you're right about that. There'd be a lot of drama if we brought in Aaron Rodgers, for sure. But again, it's just like, have you guys not been a part of this fan base? Have you not been a part of this team? Have we not watched how Kyle Shanahan has tried to obtain a quarterback and how difficult it has been? And then you're like, oh, well, that's Kyle Shanahan. You should fire Kyle Shanahan. Look at all the other teams across the league that have been trying to find quarterbacks and that haven't been successful. You had the Titans. They drafted Marcus Mariota first overall. Then they somehow take Tannehill, who was a retread. He takes over the starting spot. Then they bring in what's his name? The Liberty quarterback that's now on Green, that got traded to Green Bay. Then they draft Will Levis. Now it looks like they're going to move off Will Levis because they have the first overall pick. It's just like there's no guarantee that you thinking like, oh, we have a quarterback who's clearly proven to be what we need to execute our scheme, to operate what we need to do. Yes, has some injury concerns. Yes, might be physically limited compared to Patrick Mahomes and all of these guys, but it's like people act like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen were sure things coming out of the draft. They weren't. People's revisionist history of this quarterback conversation is insane. Josh Allen scared the crap out of me coming out of Wyoming. Just scared me. I'm like, dude, I see the physical tools. I see the traits. I see it all. But I see a guy who makes terrible decisions and throws boneheaded picks all the time. I never called Josh Allen Darnold. Like, I was very adamant that Darnold was a bust coming out because of not his physical tools, but how he played the quarterback position, the intangible process part of it. But Josh Allen wasn't a sure thing. Patrick Mahomes was the third quarterback taken. I loved Patrick Mahomes personally. I thought he was a fantastic quarterback. I watched a lot of his games that year at Texas Tech in his final season. That game him and Baker had, legendary. But you could see he has all the talent in the world. And I remember saying, I have a tag for quarterbacks. I call them demigods. For Patrick Mahomes, he was a demigod in training because he had all the physical attributes that you want. But he was coming out of Cliff Kingsbury's air raid elementary school offense. And I was just like, I don't know. I don't know how I don't know how he would translate. That's a question. Demigod in training. We got to see how Patrick Mahomes translates and how he operates in a NFL level offense. And as we heard, he wasn't very good as a rookie in that system, an Andy Reid system. Tyreek Hill called him trash, literally. So again, all this revisionist history of like, well, we need to find the next Patrick Mahomes and the next Josh Allen and the next Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson was like, what was he, a 32nd pick? Like, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. That's like, it's not just like, oh, you can't even guarantee that you're going to move into the first 5 picks and you're going to get a quarterback. I mean, look at the class where the 49ers traded up. We thought that was the greatest quarterback draft class we had ever seen. Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields. Like, oh, yeah. Look at this draft class. You got to get someone who's good. Nope. All 4 of the 5 are backup quarterbacks right now. Trey Lance is a 3rd string. Zach Wilson, 3rd string. Justin Fields, 2nd string. It's just like, yeah, say whatever you want about Brock. Oh, we can't pay Brock. We can't do this. I haven't heard one good option. Cam Ward ain't it. Shador, I'm good. Like, what retread do you want? Kirk Cousins? Just like, come on, man. Like, it's so easy to say, don't do this and don't do that, but there's never any actual logical follow-up of what the plan would be. Because I'm looking for someone who is going to be a long-term quarterback. I want this team to be able to have someone for the long haul. And call me crazy, but to have a quarterback, regardless of his perception, who has helped them get to an NFC championship game, helped them get to a Super Bowl, and even in this year, amidst a struggling season, still showed signs of being a quality quarterback. I'm going to go ahead and believe that a brand new freshly 25-year-old guy is going to improve and is going to get better and he's going to make better decisions and he'll figure out how to throw the ball better in deep ball situations. He'll figure it out. So I'd rather bet on Purdy than betting on Cam Ward, than betting on Kirk Cousins. I don't want to bet on those guys. What other options do you have? People act like they talk about Brock like these elite quarterbacks grow on trees. Like, why would you pay Brock when you could walk down to your local quarterback store and pick up a brand new Josh Allen? Why would you do that? Listen, if I could walk down the street and just type in E9 and Josh Allen comes out and he's like, hey, it's your quarterback, I'll be like, all right, I consider that for sure. If I could literally go to the store and pick and choose my franchise quarterback, yeah, I might reconsider Brock because I could have a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. But that's the thing. It's not how it works. It's just not how it works. So, it's just not how it works. It doesn't work that way. I want Iguodala. Man. And it's funny how in today's world, delusion can come across as truth. I think that's the best part. Is just pure delusion. So, oh, well, it's not pro Niner, so that must mean it's the truth. Because it's not in the light of what the 49ers want. So it's against what the 49ers want. So it must be right. It must be truthful. It must be objective. No, it's called delusion. And prefacing something as being truthful because it just happens to go against the grain of what the perceived norm is, that doesn't make it true. That doesn't make it objective. It just makes it a bad take. It just makes it a bad observation, a bad opinion. Just because well, we're not bootlickers. We're not carrying the 49ers water. Does that make it a good take? No. And that's the problem. Is that the people with bad takes have this same loop of, well, we're being objective. No, it's just a bad take. Just because it goes against the grain, just because it goes against a popular notion, just because it doesn't fit a mold of a 49ers take doesn't make it objective. It just makes it a bad take. I digress. We live in a world of bad takes. I don't have the best takes all the time. I have wrong takes. I try to be as I try to use my brain. I try to take in all the information, rationalize it, and spit out what I think makes most sense. What I think also too that makes sense to me. Also, I don't think at times makes sense to the 49ers. So those things exist as well. Um, what I think makes sense, the 49ers look at me and say, Brad, you don't know what you're talking about. So it is what it is. Like the 49ers agree with me disagree with me all the time. There are so many instances of me being like, I think the 49ers should do this. And they're like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm like, okay. Sometimes it turns out I'm right. Sometimes it turns out I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm like, all right, 49ers made a good choice. I was wrong. They were right. That's how it works. So it is what it is. It is what it is. I think when it comes to having an opinion of the team, I try to take in as much information as I can and just try to present what I think makes the most logical sense. At least that's what I try to do. So, hey, it's a world we live in. We gotta lighten it up a little bit. At the end of the day, we're talking about football. We're talking about football. People in our community need to stop making football so serious at the end of the day. Because football is supposed to be an escape from our realities. It's supposed to be an escape from the real world that we're living in, that we all are well aware of. There's a lot of problems, a lot of issues, a lot of sad things going on in the world. We don't need to make our pocket of football that. Like, it's all like, agree to disagree. Who cares if we have a different football take? Like, just don't be an ass. That's it. I don't care if you think I'm an idiot when it comes to how I talk about football. But if we can be respectful about it and we can have a conversation about it, and we can just be like, yeah, I just don't agree with anything you say, but hey, whatever. I don't care. But there's just a lot of people who are just a-holes about it. Just like, ooh, oh, well, that's not how I see it. So, just like, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, who cares? Like, I don't care what you think about football. If I did, I would ask you about it. I would talk to you about it. I just don't care. What's your man bun pop in the background? My wife and my kids got me this guy. It's Burns from the Sharks. I thought it looked pretty similar. I mean, we both rocking the man buns. Got the beard, the cold, dead black eyes. Pretty similar. I have to add to the collection. We got a 19 Debo and a Joe Montana. So those guys are going to join my man bun friend over here pretty soon. So yeah, that's the story behind that. just a Sharks player over here. Don't mind him. But anyways, man, I'm just happy that the season is over, and listen, we're gonna have it's gonna be an interesting offseason. I think I've already explained that to you. I've already expressed that I think that this is going to be quite the interesting offseason. I don't think it will be super smooth. But like I said, I also hope that I'm wrong. But I think, too, I can absolutely say that is because of how the 49ers have executed their off seasons. So if the 49ers had a history of having smooth, normal off-season contracts and normal things in the off-season, then I wouldn't be this way. But it is what it is. So, as I keep saying, preparing for the worst, but I am hoping for the best. So, heading into this offseason, I'm preparing for everything. But I'm hoping for a quick outcome, getting Brock paid, getting these guys taken care of, quick, swift moves, no drama, just getting in and out, transactions, updating the roster, new coaches, this, that, and the other thing. And we'll go from there. Fair? But I'm prepared for it all. I will say. I think we all agree. I think we all agree with this. No holdouts in camp. Please, God, no holdouts. No holdouts. But appreciate everyone. We're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about. I can finally start doing my deep dives on draft prospects. We're going to be talking about free agency, coaching changes, hopefully here soon in a little bit. So make sure you smash that like button. Appreciate everyone continuing to tune in, even in the off season. And we'll go from here. Shout out to everyone who sent a super chat. Appreciate you guys. And grab your cookies on the way out. Y'all the best. I'm out of here for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to